topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Hello and welcome to Fearless Fabulous You. I am Melanie Young, your host and fearless leader of making sure that you live life on your terms. Thank you for joining me today on YouTube, W4WN Radio, which you can hear all my shows anytime on demand after this live production on more than 65 podcast channels. And I beg you to follow me, please, at Melanie Fabulous and check out my Substack by the same name. I like to share my experiences with you and my impressions to help you live an inspired life at every age and stage, particularly when you're living it longer now and you're maybe thinking about your next chapter. I'm a queen of next chapters and endless chapters. And we're going to be talking, speaking of chapters, with an author today who has published her debut book. I just think that's so exciting, debut book. I remember when my first book came out, Getting Things Off My Shelf, I was like over the moon. I had checked something off my bucket list and it felt so great, but it's also so hard to promote a book. So when a book comes across my desk and I read it, it resonates, I always like to have the author on. When I did a show on my love of books, I mentioned Recipe for Joy, which is the book we're going to be talking about with the author, and I've invited her back. Her name is Monica Comas. She lives in New York. We were talking briefly about New York and do I miss it? Yes, I do. I miss the energy of New York, but I love living in New Orleans and it's giving me more time to write. So Monica is going to share her story about why she decided to write the book, which really is about relationships first and how recipes bond the family together. That resonated with me a lot because I'll share a little bit about it when I discuss with Monica how recipes bonded my grandmother, my mother, and I, and even now after they're gone. So let's welcome Monica Comas to Fearless Fabulous You.
Hi, Melanie. Thanks for having me.
Well, hello, and I see the book in the back. That's great. We'll put it up on a little corner too. Congratulations. A lot of authors don't know to do that. Congratulations on writing your first novel. Give us a little background about who is Monica? Where are you from? What were your early interests and why you ended up deciding to take a hand at writing?
Sure. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. So right. I'm a Midwest lady living in New York. I started out in journalism. I was a journalist for a decade, and then I did financial editing and ghostwriting. I did that for a little bit. But my true love was always fiction. I had been writing fiction since I was in high school. And I really wanted to get back to that. So I was actually working at Citigroup, and I would get up early in the morning and work on my fiction and then go and write financial stuff and then come home and work on some more fiction, and eventually got to the point that I started freelancing a little bit, and then I pulled back from the freelancing, and gradually the fiction writing took over all the writing. And I was very lucky to kind of get back to where I always wanted to go. And so here we are after it's a long journey that I'm skipping over, but eventually I'm here with a book now. And
I'm curious because I talk to a lot of writers and they always get up really early in the morning. Well, I get up in the morning to work out. I dying to write a fiction book. I actually, when I sleep, my mind is weaving stories. Ooh. And I have to keep a notebook by my bed to remember.
That was my question. I was going to ask if you do that. Good.
Yeah, of course. I've been doing that for years. I'm a big journaler. But I have like 3 threads going right now. And I think the biggest issue is giving the time. So I'm impressed that you did it early in the morning and in the evening, because I think the biggest challenge for a lot of writers is there's 2, coming up with a concept and staying with it and developing the characters and the plot line. And the other is finding the time.
Yeah.
Did you ever go to a writing camp or have a writing mentor or anything like that?
Sure. I did, and I agree with you. Like the time is a big consideration. I think
Yeah.
especially these days when everybody is juggling so much. You're juggling your job, you're juggling your family, you may be caretaking as well,
Yeah.
older parents. There's a lot going on in the world today. Um, I don't have an MFA. But what I did was I went to a lot of writing workshops. I did a lot of conferences. I had writing partners, and you just start to learn the craft. In a lot of senses, you're teaching it to yourself, but you're learning. You're learning from mentors. You're learning from people who you're taking workshops with, and you're reading good authors, and it's amazing what you can learn from just reading quality writing. And eventually it all soaks in, and you start to have your own style with it, but at least you have some bones to it.
So, two questions. Are there any workshops you would recommend? And are there authors that you really like to read and follow? Or who are the authors?
Whoa, it's an author list. That's a long list. Let me start with the workshops first.
Yeah.
I did the Community of Writers workshop out in
Hmm.
Tahoe that I really liked.
Hmm.
Um, and another one that I really liked is actually through Sarah Lawrence. And that is a university here in New York, but they have this writing institute, and I think it might go by, they just changed the name, but the authors that are running this are amazing. And I took a full novel manuscript workshop, and this is really rare. The author who ran it, her name is Marcia Bradley. She's the author of The Home for Wayward Girls, which is an amazing novel. And it's small and intimate. It's 6 authors. You each read, everybody reads the other's manuscript, and then you workshop them. So it's very one-on-one. It's very intense, but it's very collaborative and supportive. I really like what they're doing at Sarah Lawrence, so I would recommend anyone to check them out.
That's a really good tip because I am on a lot of writers groups and I get sent, lots of amazing retreats. I think I would be too distracted on a retreat. If I'm in Tuscany, I'm gonna be eating, drinking.
I
You
know.
I'm like the girl that needs to go to like Yadu. Or, when I moved to the Hudson Valley, so I bought a house in the Hudson Valley with this big vision. I was going to become hibernate and be an author. And I did. I wrote 2 books and I hibernated as author, but I developed such major FOMO,
Mm,
not being in New York with all my friends, and suddenly I felt isolated, and that wasn't cool. It was okay, cool, and during the pandemic. I live in New Orleans now, which is fosters writing. I mean, everything is just like creative here. So
yeah.
I'm thinking about when I travel a lot because I travel a lot for my wine world work because I have like two.
Hmm.
Two hats.
Right.
We don't have a lot of travel in July and August, and I'm thinking about settling in and just that's what I'm going to do. But
Mm.
I am looking. I've always wanted to have a writing mentor or coach to help, and I think.
I have a name for you, honestly,
Oh,
because
good. Then
yeah,
we'll
this woman that I
share
just
that.
mentioned, yeah, who she does the full manuscript workshop. She also takes private clients.
That's great.
And I'll have
I
you know,
think.
I took this workshop before I got my book published. So
Well, I think that's great. This podcast, doing 2 podcasts is very distracting, but it's great because then I meet people like you, and it gets me reading. I'm a big supporter of the public library. Everybody get a library
yes.
card. I mean, that was one of the first things we did when we got to New Orleans. I always have like 3 books that I'm reading at all times. I have read yours, Recipe for Joy, which you sent me. I've got one from the library called They Left Us Everything by Plum Johnson. She was caregiving her mother, which I did. And
Yeah.
I'm hoping to get her on. She's Canadian. And I have another one over here. I'm looking at Service Ready that was sent to me by Molly Arani, who's a restaurateur in Asheville. So I'm reading all the time. And fortunately, I was that little girl at age 5 with her nose in a book. Were you that little girl at age 5 with your nose in a book?
Yeah, yeah. And I love that you mentioned the libraries. I think they're so important. I
They're
did
so
my
important.
launch event at a library because I grew up in libraries. That's what we did with my mom, my sister and I. We would go to the library, and it was the best time. You're sitting in
Mhm.
those tiny little chairs in the kids section, and you walk out with a stack of books, and then you go home. And those memories, like that initial entree into words and story, you carry that with you. Um, and I think that that's how we all got into books. It starts with a library.
Yeah, and I wanted every parent out there to take their child to get a library card early and take them to the library. I grew up in libraries as well. My mother would leave me at the library while she taught
Yeah.
class because she was
Yeah.
teaching at the university. And I my biggest problem is I check out too many books. I still have that problem. I check out too many books. I'm like, no, I can't read them all. But libraries are more than just books. You can go read magazines for free, save your money on subscriptions. There
Mhm.
are puzzles at my library. There are crafts. Every library offers different things. It's like find a notary public. There's a sewing
Right.
class at my local library. So it is an amazing place to gather and learn and also find quiet. I've urged my husband to go sit in the library and read magazine, to get out of the house.
Right.
So it's great.
And it's also a place for community. Anyone
Yes.
who's going to a library, you're going there because you care about something. You care about books. You care about
Yes.
the knitting class they're holding or bettering yourself. You're taking a class on the computer, doing your. So I feel like there's just good people who go to a library and jump in the pond with them. I say.
Absolutely. Now, here's another question. Do you have in your home or apartment a reading room or a writing room that's dedicated?
Not
This
in
is New
our
York,
apartment.
and maybe a stupid question.
That's my dream. Hudson Valley and a
I know.
little desk at no, it's funny because one time we had a house someplace else and it was so small, but there was a closet and I was like, I can fit a desk in the closet and I'll write in the closet. And I literally wrote in the closet. We don't have that anymore. So now we have this apartment in the city. And the one good thing about having been a journalist is you can write anywhere,
Yeah.
any place, anytime. It doesn't matter what's going on. And so I'm lucky. I was trained to write in an apartment with no special space. It's a movable feast. Wherever there's the least amount of noise, that's where I go. I prop my computer up. Sometimes I just put it on the humidifier and I sit on the ground. There is nothing precious about my process.
Well, we're lucky in New Orleans because we do have a house. You get more here. And we have one room that is dedicated to no TV, just music, and it's my reading room and writing, and I can write up there. I also am in my studio and office, which I do writing, but we go out there to get away from each other and the quiet and TV, and it's a sacred space.
You're living my
Lots of
dream.
books and
My dream.
artwork, and yeah. So
But that's so nice that you've carved that out for yourself because
important.
you recognize that you need that because life can be very loud. Life can
Yeah.
pull you in all the directions and you need that place where you can be quiet and you can be centered and you can connect with art, creativity, words.
Yeah.
Like I find that so special.
We had that in the Hudson Valley, and then suddenly work took over everything, and I felt like I was living in a liquor store. So, I mean, even the sauna became a wine cellar. I'm like, there's no sacred space anymore. I mean, I think everybody needs to carve out a sacred space, even if it's a closet
Yeah.
or a bathroom or something. Turn it into your sacred space and leave the electronics out and the noise and make it your place.
Yeah.
And try to. I try to. I have a practice where I write like my 3 page. I had Julia Cameron on the show many years
Yeah.
ago. And,
Morning pages.
the writer's
Excellent.
way amazing. And she says write 3 pages a day. I write in my journal, and that I try to read at least one chapter of my library book a day. How do you carve out the time?
Well, it's interesting. Post publication, I'm actually asking this question of myself because it used to be get up, write, walk the dog, feed the dog, start to do things around the house, so my morning was really my work time. And now that I'm still promoting Recipe for Joy and trying to get the word out still, I'm doing that, but I'm also working on something new. So I'm still trying to write first thing in the morning, and I do start with morning pages. I love that you mentioned the morning pages
It's
because
great.
that actually, it's so, I don't know what magic happens with them, but it really just, you get to dump everything and then you can write. I don't, she's genius. And then I'll write, and there's a lot of social media that comes with being an author. And I didn't realize, I think, how much time that takes up.
Yeah.
And so I like to save that for the afternoon, but the morning is when I write best. So
Yeah, I'd say the hardest thing about writing a book is promoting it.
it
You
is.
know,
It's
it's
just
so
not,
time consuming. The
and
social
it's,
media part of it in particular.
yeah, but it's also, so I don't think a lot of writers are hardwired to be promoters too. So for all of us, we're like, what are we doing? We have to talk about the book now, but I just wrote the book. So it's a
Fortunately, I was
big,
hardwired, having coming from a public relations
yeah,
background. So I
you
did
knew
my
how to
own
do
media
it.
tour. I did the best PR job on the first book. Anything's off my chest. The second one, I'm like, oh, I spent all my money on the first book. I didn't hire anybody. I did it myself. Second book, I started a show by the same name. So Fearless, Fabulous You is the name of my second book. So I just
Amazing.
created
Yeah,
a show and became my platform for what the book stands for. So it's great.
it's
Let's talk
incredible.
about Recipe for Joy. Now I'm going to start this with I alluded to it. So actually, neither my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, kind of cooked, but she had a lady cook for her. In the
Mhm.
South, you have someone, and the lady of the house supervises. And my
Okay.
mother hated to cook. However, she loved to bake. That said, recipes were very important for both of them because they love to read recipes and like to eat. And they like to try to dabble in the kitchen. When two important things. When I decided to get married later in life, my mother gave me one day all the recipes I grew up eating that my grandmother would cook. And Bertie was her name, Bertie cook, and mother. And I have them in a binder. I think she gave it to me before I got married. I don't care about getting married. She just gave it to me. She wanted me to have it. And I have those recipes, and they're really special because they were the ones I do remember my mother and I cooking together, mainly
Yeah.
baking.
Mm.
And then when I was cleaning out my mother's massively cluttered house, I found two binders filled with recipes, handwritten recipes in my grandmother's handwriting, and her mahjong girls and canasta girls. And these are straight out of the 60s and 70s, which is when they lived, and they used all sorts of fun things like canned salmon, put margarine, and then they clipped recipes from like Family Circle, McCall's magazine. So I have those binders, and when we were caring for my mother in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where I had to go live, kind of like Belle did, going to see, which we'll talk about. I started cooking. I found the binder. I started cooking the recipes and adapting them for now,
Right, right.
And that is going to end up being kind of the basis of one of the books. But it was that,
I love it.
I urge everybody out there, even if you don't cook. The great thing about family recipes, as we're going to talk about the recipe of joy, is they live on long after the person you love is gone.
Yeah. Yes.
And
Yes.
not a lot of things do. Photos, yes. Recipes, though, you can pass along and keep eating. And when you, I did a on my Substack, I did something about vichyssoise
Mm.
because my dad and I loved vichyssoise together, and he was very finicky about vichyssoise. And I had a riff on vichyssoise here in New Orleans that had nothing to do with potatoes or leeks, but it was so good it took me back to vichyssoise and wanting to make it and
Yeah.
digging out that vichyssoise recipe that mother made dad and I. So that brings me to the book you have written, which is called Recipe for Joy, which is an interesting title given the process of the book. So why don't
Mm.
you hand this over to you to give us the plot line of the book and how you decided to give it the name Recipe for Joy?
Sure, sure. Well, first of all, I have to say that story is just, thank you for sharing that. What a gift.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for you and the binders of recipes. And please promise that you will follow that through
Mhm.
and make it the story that you want, because I mean, I will be first in line to buy that. I love it. And what a gift. So Recipe for Joy, I always say that it's about a book of cherished family recipes, a series of mysterious letters sent by a secretive hand, and two sisters who need directions back to one another. And the story is it's funny. It echoes a lot of just what you said. It's about a character named Belle, and she it just doesn't have it together in her life, and she hightails it home to her grandmother, the house that she grew up in. Her grandmother raised her, her and her sister, And she kind of comes with her tail between her legs and asks if she can stay. And her grandmother's like, of course. And in the course of the time, her grandmother helps, give her confidence and build her back up a bit. And she starts stepping into her life a little bit. And the grandmother passes away. Now, her and her sister are estranged, and they've been estranged for years. And each of them receive in the mail months later a cookbook, and with the directions from a letter from their grandmother saying, I want you to read this together. And a series of letters come. They're supposed to make recipes, and they go through a journey together. But it is not a smooth recipe, let's just say. There's a lot of bumps, and what they have to do is square their shoulders to one another, to why they are estranged, to misunderstandings, to misperceptions. And in a way, these recipes remind them of who they used to be and show them the path to who they can be again. So that's a bit about the book.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Belle and her sister both live in New York, but they're completely different. And the sister has an armor around her. It's pretty intense.
Yeah, she does. She's
Yeah.
she is successful, she's married, she has kids, she is very wealthy, she is all the things that Bella's not. And
Right.
so there's a friction there because of that, but the friction, started a little bit earlier too. And it's interesting the title, you mentioned that because the book is a journey, and it's actually a journey through grief. And what I'll share with you is
Yes.
the original title was actually called Grief Cookie, but the imprint, I think, wisely said, let's think about a different title for this. And I think they were right, because at the core of this is getting back to a joyous place. And so that's how we ended up changing the title to Recipe for Joy.
Well, Belle needed to find a lot of joy. I mean, she leaves New York with a lot of guilt because New York
And
is very.
shame.
We were talking about this before the show. New York is very intense.
Yes.
You move to New York to be successful, to discover yourself, to make it. I mean, that damn song, it puts a lot of pressure on you. You got to make it. And, God, I did. But there's a lot of bumps living in New York. It's not, unless you marry someone who has lots of money and you have to think about it anymore, which, the sister seemed to have done. That she was very successful and married well, but that comes with its own pressures, as we see in the book. So the pressure cooker that is New York got to both of the sisters in different ways.
Yeah.
But what's interesting, what is an underlying theme in the book, the grandmother, and let's just talk about how a grandmother's love is an unconditional love. I was not sure how the mother died. I think it was suicide. What happened to the mother?
No, it's cancer.
Cancer. Okay, I knew it was something. Okay, that was another book, suicide. I just read another book, suicide.
No, it's books can blur that way for sure.
Yeah. No, there was another book I just read.
Yeah.
But there seems to be a lot of the authors interviewed, there's missing mothers. Just interesting theme lately. So the love of the grandmother is incredible. And I identify with that because my mother was unique and one of the first career mothers of her day, and was too busy to go to school, take me to school. I was the original latchkey child at the time, but my grandmother became my mother. I was staying with her all the time. When my parents traveled, she would go to all the school plays. She would take me to school. So I developed a very close relationship with her, and that's where I got to sit and watch her with her friends playing canasta and mahjong, eat the food that I talked about the binder. The grief that I felt when my grandmother dropped dead of cardiac arrest was as deep as the grief that Belle feels when her grandmother passes.
Shatters you. It shatters you.
You're shattered, and there's layers, and I felt a different kind of grief with my mother when she died. But losing someone that close to you who has shaped your life and given you the love that you need to bolster your self-worth and your own identity is shattering. And Belle really goes through incredible layers of grief. What brings
Yes.
her back?
What brings her back? That's interesting. So I think there's a few things. Um, I think she has a lot of love around her, and I think she's very fortunate in this regard.
Mm,
She has the grandmother's friends, she has her own friends, and she has people that are trying to bring her back to the land of the living, essentially, because
exactly.
when you are so shattered by grief, you really aren't a part of the world. The world is rushing by you.
Well,
Um,
especially when you've been caregiving, because
yes,
you're already in the land of the, when you're caregiving, you are in the land of the dying
yeah, it's
before that
true.
person is gone.
Yeah, it's very true.
And it's everywhere.
Hmm.
The ghosts are everywhere, even before the person's gone. And that's very disorienting.
Yes, yes, that's the perfect word for it. It's disorienting.
Mm-hmm.
It feels surreal that the rest of the
Yeah.
world is moving along when your
Yeah.
world, the bottom of your world has fallen out. Um, so I think there's the people around her. And what I wanted to do with that is the grandmother, I was very close to my grandmother as well. But the grandmother in this book is actually an amalgam of my grandmother and my mother
Uh,
because it's the grief of my mother that is I poured into this book.
right.
So I think what I found is that there were women around me who had walked that road before and understood to like link arms with me and gently walk me forward. Because if you have never grieved so completely before, you really don't understand it because it's not something we're kind of in touch with in this culture. We don't do that. You
Yeah.
know, I think in other cultures, they might be a little more attuned to it. Um, so I wanted to show that she had a lot of love around her that was helping her walk. Um, but the recipes as well help bring her back
Right.
because what they do is they spark the memories of the foods and the aromas and the moments that she had from all walks of her childhood and her adolescence and her life with the grandmother and her sister. And it was a way to show that, like, your sister's still here. Here's, so it was, they all played a part, and I think bringing Belle back.
Well, the recipes are bonding. You
Yeah.
were not, you were abandoned in a way. You lost a mother. Belle loses a mother, a grandmother. The sisters estranged. And what's interesting is the grandmother and her sister, the aunts,
Yes.
right, great aunts, were also estranged.
Hmm.
So it was an interesting parallel that the grandmother and her sister and Belle and her sister, they both were estranged.
Right. And I wanted to show how easy it is for a chasm to form in a
Yeah,
relationship
very.
and how that can just keep perpetuating itself through the generations unless you actually confront it and do something about it. Um,
A lot of
and
families go through that.
exactly, exactly.
I mean, my family was notorious for not speaking to each other forever. And I mean, like crazy. I have a great aunt. One of the sons never spoke to her. We still don't know why she stopped speaking. I think I know, but we'll never know because she's dead. And you know,
It happens. It's a thing that
yeah,
definitely happens. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And the voices from the grave are not there. I when I was when I was cleaning out my mother's house, the voices from the grave were coming all around me because I was discovering things about my family in every
Mhm.
nook and cranny of a house of clutter. I would
Wow.
find something. I mean, the recipe book was one. One was interesting. I found the immigration papers for
Wow.
my paternal great grandfather, who I didn't think existed. I was told my paternal grandfather was an orphan and didn't know his parents. And in a
Oh,
lockbox in the garage under a pile of debris of tools, we found immigration papers.
wow.
I'm
This
like,
is like a treasure hunt for
wow,
you.
they live. How did he become orphan? And then I took them to a cousin because I had to give a lot of this away. I had to divest of many things. And I thought, what family member would most want this? And I gave it to a cousin on my paternal side. And he told me the story that, yes, they probably came over and they were too poor to take care of their children and gave them up to orphanages. This is just common with immigrants did, kind of like people do
Mhm.
now with their pets. Um, and they didn't really know they blocked it out because they were so young. They thought they didn't have parents. I just couldn't believe it.
Wow.
Yeah.
You have, I think from this house clean out you did, you have
Oh
multiple
yeah. It's
streams
like
that you can
voices from the
pursue.
grave. Oh, I discovered so many weird things. Weird
Wow.
things. It's yeah, very strange things.
Family's complicated, and there's layers and things
Yeah,
that you don't realize that's going on until decades later. It's a fascinating thing.
yeah, it really is. And when you finish the book, how did that make you feel to finish it and say, "I've done"? When did you know when did you know the story was done? Because that's
Mm.
another thing with fiction. When is it time to wrap that up? And what made you say the story is finished?
Yeah, it's it's a hard thing to declare it because I think the writer in you always wants to do something a little bit different, but you do get to a point where it's time to take it to an agent, where it's time for an agent to take it out to market. You just have to declare it.
Did you
I
have
think
an agent before you wrote the book, or did you write the book and then shop it around to an agent?
I wrote the book. I had to get a new agent because my old agent, such a lovely person, but she decided to focus on nonfiction. So I knew that I was going to have to get a new agent with this book. And so when I was done, I started querying just like everyone does. And that's how I got my current agent, who is wonderful. Um, and then he took it out to market. And I think I think when you feel emotionally satisfied that you have a full arc of a story, that you've poured all the emotion that you can into the pages and into the characters, and you've looked at it so much that you literally can't look at it anymore, it's done. But it's never done then, because then when you go through the publishing process, you will have a developmental edit, you will have a copy edit, you will have proofreading. So which is good,
Mhm.
which is wonderful, because your story just gets that much better. It gets refined. And I was lucky enough to work with just phenomenal professionals. So
Yeah. Who is the Lake Union Publishing?
thank you.
Yeah. So what was the process? I mean, getting getting the right publisher is important.
Yes.
I think it is important. That's all I'm going to say. It is I'm trying to figure out how to disengage from my publisher right now. Um, what was the length of time from when you wrote your first draft to going through the different renditions and revisions? How long did that take?
From the time I wrote the first draft,
Well,
um,
when you had the manuscript ready to shop around
to
before,
get an agent.
yeah.
hmm I think I queried for a few months. The query process is long and it takes a long time
Yes.
to process. Excuse me. Um, but what I loved about my current agent is that I queried him. He said, "Send me the manuscript." And a week later, he wanted to call. And I think that's what you want. You want an advocate
Yeah.
who immediately loves your work, who knows how to place it, who
hmm
believes in it. And I went with him. Other agents had the full manuscript and were considering it, and I just knew that if someone believes so clearly and so quickly in something that I've written, that's the agent for me. So I would say that whole process took a few months, and then it was really, really fast. The book sold in 2 months, which
Wow.
is really fast. I don't
And
think
they,
things are moving that fast anymore. Publishing is a very slow moving animal.
yeah,
So
very slow moving. I mean, that's
yeah.
amazing.
Mm.
And for anybody that is like really amazing. So if you're writing a book, just know that that's like, super amazing, and it can take a lot longer.
But
It really
it's
can.
Yeah, it can take a lot longer, but it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. And, it's,
Yeah. Well, no, don't give up. I mean, it took me a while because when I was shopping around getting things off my chest, the survivor's guide is saying fearless and fabulous in the face of breast cancer. Nobody saw me as breast cancer girl. They saw me as I took a lot of meetings. They wanted me to write a cookbook because I was food girl.
right.
But I don't even cook. I know how to promote. I go to restaurants. I know how to eat. I can talk about food, but I don't even cook. I kept shoes in my oven. Um, I didn't keep anything in my husband. I still cook. I don't cook. We would make you pay tonight. I'm nervous because I'm doing it because somebody sent me to pay you a pen to try out. But I had to explain that I said, but I had breast cancer and I'm going to write the definitive book to help women navigate a journey they didn't plan to take. And I'm a passionate traveler. It took a while to, you know, but I held to my guns, until I got a publisher. Was it the best publisher? No, it was a publisher that believed in me. But what was a challenge, and even more so now, is they want to know your numbers. What's your TikTok numbers? What's your Instagram numbers?
Oh, I
And you just want
know.
to scream because suddenly you have to become a social media personality before you even write a book, which I can't stand because I do the social media out of necessity, but does it bring me joy? No.
I, I, I understand that. And
Yeah.
I think generationally, I mean, I have nieces and nephews, and that's just second nature to them.
Yeah.
They grew up with it. This is what they do. I'm 55. Like, this isn't something I grew up with. This is a new beast that I have to learn
Uh,
to
but you got to
parent
do it.
with. Yeah, but you have to do it. It's part of it. Like, that's
Part of
how the
it.
publishing world has changed, and you have to change with it. That's how
Exactly.
it goes. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I'm like you. I try not to go down the rabbit hole of social media because you can.
You
Death.
can.
I think they call it death scrolling. I try to allocate my posts and, I'm not as strategic as, map them out for the week. And I don't do that, but I could, but I don't. But I could. And you should. Or get someone to help you. So are you doing other work besides just being a full-time, not just being a full-time writer, is being full-time writer your full-time job now
It
for
is
you?
now. Yes.
Okay. Well,
Hmm.
good for you that you can do that.
Well, I'm
Um,
really lucky.
yeah,
I'm lucky. Yeah.
you are. You are. But that's a good thing because freelance writing sucks right now. The pay rate sucks. And I've kind of pulled back on freelance writing because I was looking at what's taking me away from the book I want to write. And it was a lot of
Mhm.
little. So, my message to writers who want to write a book, which is different from writing freelance articles and whatnot, is make that the book your job, your priority, and set aside that time and the day and don't let anything distract you. And that is hard, but if you want to get it done, you've got to do it. Now, how would you add to that?
I think I think I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and it's being protective of your time. And I remember I was at a workshop with some women, and this one woman, she was so prolific, and she said, I write a half hour a day. That's all the time I have. Half hour a day. That's all I do. By the end of the year, I have a book. And it really put things into perspective. It was like, you don't need a ton of time, but you do need to dedicate the time and be loyal to that and
Mm.
not be pulled in every direction. And it's hard, I think, when you're doing it at home. If you have a lovely place that you can go and like be away from the dishwasher and the dog and the this and the that and all the things that are always, weighing down on things you have to get done just to live, all the better. Everybody, I think you can find a minute or a little bit of time. If it's in the morning, if it's in the evening when everybody goes to bed and you just have a half hour, but it's your half hour. But you do really have to caretake that half hour. And what I have started doing, I used to talk to people when they would call in the morning. Oh, they have time now, so I'll talk to them. But that was my writing time. And so now what I've started to do is I don't take calls in the morning, just do my writing. I can call everybody back later. And it's these little things that will open some space up, hopefully, for people.
I mean, also if you have some financial security, if you're still having to, make ends meet, maybe, it's like, it can be hard carrying a job if you have a full-time job and you're working at a job because you got to supplement your writings. You're not making the money at writing.
Right.
So for those following this, the ideal goal is to become a full-time writer. But if you still need to pay bills and the writing is not doing it, you've got to be realistic. You've got to come up with a way to bring in income and balance it with your writing time. I had to do that. It's not easy.
It's not easy. I
It's
agree.
not
And I
easy.
don't, right. And I don't mean to make it seem like it is. You have to pay your bills. Like,
Yeah,
I was a financial journalist. Like, there's no getting around it. But bills and your income
Right.
has to come first.
income has to be first.
But hopefully you get to a place where you can find just a little bit of time,
Mm-hmm.
and then the shift can happen. Maybe it's a little less freelancing and it's a little more
Right.
doing a different kind of writing. It doesn't happen overnight.
It doesn't. And it's a discipline, much like working out and
Yeah.
setting aside that time every day to get that stretch or that cardio or that thing you need to do to take care of yourself. Writing is the same way. Most creatives that I know carve out that time, and they don't make it a lot of time. Like I have a cousin, he's a famous artist, Hunt Slonim, and he paints a bunny every day. He's a prolific in bunnies, I think, but bunny every day. Julia Cameron talks about the 3 pages. I try to read a chapter of a book. I try to journal. I set aside certain times. My goal now is to set aside the creative writing time every day. I also have a Substack because I'm building that. And that is another form of creative. But what I've done is on my Substack, the paid end of it is where I'm weeding out the novel, the chapters. So I'm using the Substack paid. I don't even care how many people pay. I just do it that way. So it's my little section where
Yeah.
I'm writing chapters and doing it that way. Because
Yeah.
as I said, I have like 3 books in my head. They're very different. They're really terrific books. And I'm leaving them out. But you got to start with one. And that's, key. So what is next for you? Now, I mean, obviously you've got the book. And Juan, if we have a photo, do we have a photo of it we can put up on the screen in the little bitty corner? Did you get that? Juan's my engineer. There he is. So, what's next? The book came out in April 26th, so or March 20th. And so, what's next? Are you going to write another book, or are you going to sit for a while and just focus on this, or what?
No, there's no sitting, as we all know. We're not sitting. Um, my next book, it's a lighter story. It's a story about a funny, vivacious family, and they are all at a tipping point in each of their lives. These are adult children, and they're all going home for 1 week, as they always do, to their mother's house in the Hamptons for her annual art show. But this year, there's some stormy weather brewing. There's the confluence of the art show, a memorial for their father who passed away almost 2 decades ago, and everybody's lives are teetering on the brink, and a secret is revealed that pushes everybody over. And what I love about this story is it gets to the heart of what it means to be a family. And it's how you get through, and do you get through the way that you think you would. But this is a light, funny summer story, but there's real emotional meat on its bones too. So I'm excited about it.
It sounds like a great book. Those family stories. I think it's always good to start with what you know, whether it's family or a work situation or I always felt my life was a little like Sex in the City for a long time. And a lot of what I'm writing right now is about the 90s, my life in the 90s in New York, because I have these rich memories of these incredible characters. So many are not around, and only I have them because of my relationship. So I've been writing a lot about that right now to weave it into Are You on the List, which is going to be a book about a public relations executive who, is the queen of the list and the top of the heap of the culinary world, and then things fall like a souffle around
That's a
her.
great title. I love it.
Well, it's so true, because what
Totally.
happens wonderful reveal is she gets delisted when she loses a lot of clients for a lot of reasons. Um, she falls off the list, and even today, what makes my hair stand on end, my itch, what gives me the ick, is the question: Are you on the list? Are you on the list? I go to, and now I'm a journalist. I'm a media person, so there's nothing that makes me really get the ick factor and send me into snorting when I go to like Galatoire's. I went to Gala, the famous restaurant, and we had RSVP'd, and the little clipboard girl in the black dress, age 20, goes. And you sit there with that painful wait while they peruse, and your why. So I'm like, it's why. I'm at the end of the page, young, right? And they go, I don't see you on the list. Are you sure? I don't see you on the list. And your hair stands on edge because you are meant to be on the list. And it happens. It happens. But I was the other person who was the list person. Like, I don't think about it. So that's where it's going to go. And it's funny, and there's a lot of characters, but it's one of them. The other one is, but be going home to take care of my mother and discovering crazy things. But the Are You the List is probably the bestseller because it's like going to have, people in it that people know about, and they'll be like, oh. But
sounds dishy to me. I love it.
Isn't that hysterical? So yeah, it's Are You on the List? And it's that term still exists, and I'm still on. I'm on PR groups. Lurking to see if there's any work and writing work, and it's still like I need someone with top tier magazine lists, and the list thing never goes away. Ever, including when you write a book, do you have a mailing list? Are you going to create a funnel if you're a coach? It's like the list thing, listicles never go away.
No,
Whether
we're in the
you're
era
writing them, you're on them. Am I on the list? Oh my God. What makes you qualify? And it's like, God almighty. And every summer I would sit my staff down and go, okay, we're gonna, now that the James Beard Awards are over and everything else, with quiet time, we're going to redo the lists. Everybody who's going to help me. And I would be dragging all those damn magazines up to the Hudson Valley before, like everything. Going through the mastheads. And not one person on my staff would help me. Damn it. And
oh my gosh, you were in charge of the list. That's hilarious.
I know. But it's like that's.
How far are you into this book? I have to ask because it sounds so good.
Oh, about a third.
Okay. That's a good ways.
Yeah, in your pants. I even laugh at it myself.
But this is keeping all of those good, like the nostalgia, that whole era. Like that was an era.
Yeah, and I have a couple of chefs following me, with famous chefs. They're like, go girl, yeah, I remember him. Because they keep dying, and every time one dies, I'm like, okay, David Boulay died. Let me talk about him now. Tom Bellini died. And I go down the story of me and David Boulay, and there's a great story in all of them. But anyway, I want to congratulate you, Monica. Let me get this wrapped up. We've been talking to Monica Comas. The book is Recipe for Joy. It's a delightful read, poignant, but delightful and joyous at the end. And it makes me want to realize that everybody should be gathering your family recipes and treasuring them, because one day the family members will be gone, but you'll always have those recipes.
Yeah, they'll keep you tethered to your past and to who you love. Yeah.
Thank you and good luck, and let's stay in touch, all right?
Thank you. I would love to. This was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And so everybody listening, okay, get out there and write. Get out there and support your local library and read. Support authors if you don't want to write, but just use your mind and get off the phone. You have a choice in how to live your life. I always say choose it to live on your terms and not by terms set by others who want to see you in their light, and you shine your own light. And always choose being fearless and fabulous.